Now, recently, Bernie Sanders gave a speech and finally released a proposal to remove marijuana from the Schedule 1 list. Now, this was during a nearly 2-hour town hall meeting at George Mason University in Virginia. Now, in that speech, he also decided to go after the war on drugs. Quote, "Too many Americans have seen their lives destroyed because they have criminal records as a result of marijuana. That has got to change. That's wrong." Now, of course, Sanders, so far, is the only presidential candidate to have called for the scheduling of marijuana to be changed. Now, Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland, has said that he would put marijuana on the Schedule 2, which is a little bit less strict of a designation, but nonetheless, it still be a controlled substance according to the federal government. Hillary Clinton decided to punt on the issue during the last debate by saying that, well, I want to see how it turns out in Colorado and Washington. Well, Colorado, it's been over a year. They made $150 million, and actually, rates of drug use have actually decreased. They've saved a ton of money. The results seem to be in, and they're very, very encouraging. Nonetheless, Hillary Clinton's like, I want to wait. Let's wait. Let's play it safe until the polls come in. Great. Now, Sanders' plan doesn't really go as far as legalization, and let's be fair about that. But states would be allowed to regulate the drug on their own, in the same way that state and local laws regulate tobacco and alcohol. And people who use marijuana in states that have legalized it for recreational use would no longer be at risk for prosecution from the federal government. So already you're eliminating the federal government from the equation by saying, hey, states' rights. If you pass marijuana laws, your citizens, well, we won't have drug busts anymore from the federal government, federal agents coming in and taking down dispensaries. None of that. No more of that. We're done. We're done. Marijuana's current classification, however, hold on. One more thing. His plan would also allow marijuana businesses currently operating in states that have legalized to also use banking services and apply for tax deductions that are currently unavailable to them under federal law. Now, why can't they use those already, even in states that are legalized? Well, marijuana's current classification is only reserved for drugs with no medically accepted use and a high potential for abuse. And when you do that, when you have that classification, look at that. No medically accepted use. Well, obviously, you're not going to have banks wanting to do business with that, right? You're not going to be able to do research on this because it's already been deemed that it has absolutely no medical value, which we know is completely false. Now, on Wednesday night's event, Sanders also said that the large amount of marijuana arrests, he cast that as part of a broken system, a broken criminal justice system that targets minorities. And he's absolutely correct. Of that, he said, quote, "I will not be a president of a country that has more people in jail than any other country." We do jail more people than China or Iran. And a huge majority of that, nonviolent drug offenses. You want to do something about that, well, you end the drug war. And it seems like this is the step that Bernie Sanders is trying to take. He said in the year 2015, it is time for the federal government to allow states to go forward as they best choose on marijuana. It's kind of ironic how Bernie Sanders is actually more states' rights when it comes to marijuana than nearly all of the Republican candidates that we saw in last night's debate, with the exception of Rand Paul. A little bit of irony in there. I think it's important to point that out. Now, how popular will this be with liberals? Well, according to a Gallup poll released earlier this month, national support for legalizing marijuana is at an all-time high, with more liberals supporting it than conservatives, and more younger people supporting it than older people. Now, young people, speaking of young people, they overwhelmingly support marijuana legalization, with a recent Pew poll survey saying that 68% of millennials support legalizing marijuana. Now, as I said, this doesn't legalize marijuana, but it gets us one step closer. And I think, personally, within the decade, most states will either have decriminalized or legalized for recreational use, with obviously some conservative or older states resisting that until, of course, later on. Now, Bernie Sanders, when it comes to millennial votes, he's already pretty much won them over. So I don't think this support of marijuana rescheduling is going to really add a whole lot of other people to his side. However, when it comes to policy, this is absolutely sound policy, and it's great for things like racial justice. As we've mentioned, a lot of African Americans are disproportionately targeted by the war on drugs and are imprisoned as an effect of the war on drugs. So this has a direct impact when it comes to racial justice as well. Now, as for me, I would like to see him move forward towards full legalization and not just removing it from the scheduled list. But nonetheless, I think this is a great step forward and definitely infinitely more progressive than both of his Democratic rivals.